Welcome one and all. My name is Monica. Welcome to Guru Grit. This is a place for learning, and as the retrogrades would have it, my work is not cooperating with me today, so I hope that we can get through this. I'll try to keep it really quick, but I thought it was a fun little video idea. I actually made this while I was ill over the holidays, and I recorded something, but I think I was so hopped up on like cold meds that it turned into like a rant as opposed to just like a fun little whatever, right? So let's get into this amazing idea. So today I did a live for the first time in quite a while, and we had everyone there was very supportive, but what usually tends to happen if you've been on the lives is you'll notice that people come and they get really testy or defensive or something like that because they don't understand spirituality and they have no desire to understand spirituality, which is fine. I think, everyone should do what they feel like doing. But the interesting thing is, if something is not for you, why are you so bent on asserting how much you disrespect it or don't value it or find it to be a bunch of hooey or some toss? So the interesting thing, and the reason I want to make the video, is because as we're going through the Edgar Cayce series on sex and the spiritual path, and even Abraham Hicks, constantly stresses the importance of not misusing one's creative energy. So we've come to the segment I've called Prove It. Should you prove the purpose and function of spiritual life to non-spiritual people? I think we already know the answer to that, but let's get into it. So in terms of what? I mean, there's such a scope for how people live. Like, I included astrology, law of attraction, tarot, runes, pendulums, living celestially. So doing things in accordance with planets. So one remedy for me personally in my chart is to observe Saturday, the day of Saturn. So I wear black on Saturdays. If you're on my TikTok, you've noticed anytime I'm dressed in black, I probably film that on a Saturday. On YouTube, if I'm wearing black and dark blue, it's a Saturday, 100 times, 100 out of 100 times. Okay, so rituals. And then cultural and religious superstition. I only said that because in my observation, religious people tend to be the most superstitious people, even though they believe in a higher power. And I just find that very funny, kind of a little bit. It's a little funny, okay? It's a little bit interesting. So in any case, the reason I've just included all of these separately, although they would all fall under the branch of belief anyway, I do kind of have to, I suppose, single out here law of attraction because it's not a belief. It works whether you believe it in or not, okay? So if you said, I don't believe in gravity and I don't believe water makes you wet, it doesn't really matter. If I throw you into the lake, you're going to get wet. If you throw something up, it's going to fall down. It doesn't really ask for your permission, but more importantly, it does not require your understanding. It simply functions, okay? So when people try to split hairs and say, oh, I used the law of attraction, nothing happened, but then I switched to the law of assumption, and it's like, it's like spiritual clickbait. It's not really honest, and that kind of bothers me because I have a need to like sterilize everything that bugs me, but that isn't the way that it is, okay? So uses. So I've gone into just a bit of like why some things are much more permissible than others. Like, for example, let's say, you hand in a paper late for school because you have to observe a religious holiday. It's as though like, globally we have this sort of collective respect, understanding, and acknowledgement of spiritual practice when it's under the umbrella of a religion. But anything outside of that, like, and I'm not like defending the whole of New Age. I do think a lot of it is like pretty cringy these days. And if you know what's up, then most of it is not to be believed anyways. But, if something is like under this like protection of like the name of religion, it's fine. But if it's something more independent, okay, so I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm not saying anything, okay, belief is your belief. But let's say like astrology, or you're listening to your body, or you're trusting your intuition, those things, people think that you're insane, and that doesn't like qualify for some kind of exemption for that late paper, for example. Or if, can you imagine how many exams I've had to write during Mercury retrograde? To me, like, astrology should be taught in schools. It's a tool for self-empowerment. And if I ever had a school, I wouldn't schedule anything during Mercury retrograde, well, I would, but not anything like that can throw people off. Though, to be fair, if all my students were actually learning astrology, they wouldn't be afraid either. But in any case, in the occult, this is the difference. You are the sovereign operative power of your life, okay? Your mind, your intention, your emotion, your energy, your spirit is what moves your life. It's what creates your life. Whereas in religion, it is believed there's an overriding spiritual power that dictates what happens to you in your life. I suppose this is where the schism happens, and this is where you kind of lose me. So in any case, in the occult, I mentioned this does not mean that there's no energetic hierarchy. So I really want to highlight this because I think a lot of the times people think, oh, I get it now, I understand this, that, the other. So everything's like perfect. Or everything is sort of like free love, free spirit. It's not. And this took me many years to kind of come to terms with, because I still don't really like it, because I'm a little bit, I suppose, like rebellious or whatever. But who really likes authority figures? I was just born generally having a distaste for them. There still is an energetic hierarchy. There is, and this is not to say that something is like better than something else, but if you're going to incarnate into any life form, there's work to do. There's something you want to experience, something you want to learn about. Okay, so if you're here, you want to get to here. That's what you chose. That's like exciting for you. It doesn't mean that it's not as good as anything else. It's actually all necessary. All of these components are necessary for the greater whole. Okay, so there's something to appreciate, and infinite intelligence as well, as the name would suggest, infinitely intelligent, and the universe is incredibly resourceful and efficient, so nothing is ever wasted. Okay, so it is not arrogant then to acknowledge your amazing spiritual design. So this means, like, if you were born into a family that was really, really poor, no one's cursing you or punishing you, but maybe you wanted a taste of that because you intended to be rich. So you're thinking, well, if I intended to be rich, why was I born poor? It's like, because when you get rich, it's going to feel so much better. It's going to feel a million times better. If you wanted to be rich and you were born rich, where's the flavor? Where's the taste? Food tastes better when you're hungry. Water is so much more sensational after you've been thirsting for like 30 minutes or an hour, right? So it's important to sort of strip away this lens of human bias and human definition, or as Abraham calls it, humaning, when you're trying to understand these things. And it took me a very, very long time. So I completely understand people who are like feisty and curious and ask a lot of questions. And even if they're a bit angry or frustrated and kind of lash out a little bit, I get that too. But until you're willing to dispense with all of those definitions, it's going to be very, very hard for people like that to get an answer out of anything, really. Now, here I've written, you simply assume responsibility over your domain, which is your life, and accept that whatever is because you have made it that way. So there's nothing particular to blame. And I think this is another schism that we have. So this is an ancient little medieval painting of astrologers looking at the night sky. I think it's so beautiful. But people tend to think, okay, so if I was born poor or with this condition or a dad like this or a mom like that, it has to be God punishing me, because why would a baby choose that? But you're ancient. You've chosen many times, many, many things. And it's not to like hurt yourself. And I'm going to do a whole discourse on karma, but karma is not a punishing force. It's a reflective force. Okay. So there's none of this being born into a circumstance where you like hate yourself, or the universe hates you, or God's trying to teach you a lesson. That's not true at all. So in any case, what you have to accept and acknowledge is that whatever condition you observe in your life today, you put it there. So a mild example, I'm suffering from my first ever case of tennis elbow. I've never had it before, but I'm in agony. Like, I can't sleep. I wake up. It hurts to do anything. It hurts to stir a pot, which is terrible because I love food. So it started to get me to pay attention to other things that were happening with my health and how I had been neglecting to do little things that would have aided in those things, because I thought, but surely this spoon of honey or sugar won't make a difference. Surely this bit of dairy won't make a difference. And then it adds up. And now it's come, it's pretty much immobilized me. I can't do what I'm meant to be doing every single day. It's hard to use a computer, to type, to do readings and so forth. And I'm like, oh my God, but I did that to myself. Now, you don't want to acknowledge it. And I said it was a mild example, so I don't want to get a mouthful of abuse through my computer or hate down the phone, but it's little things like that. They do add up. Your thoughts incrementally add up. So let's go back to the example of being born into poverty. Well, you observe, and what you observe most commonly becomes like a dominant thought. So you think, well, I've wanted to be rich my whole life because I've been poor my whole life, so I know how that feels. So why am I not rich? It's like because you keep thinking about being poor. You've got to shift the mentality. So you have to move away from the idea that something, when I say there's nothing particular to blame, I'm not saying you or me are to blame, but it's just a function of your form. That's just how your brain and emotions work. And once you rig the system and you understand why you're doing it and how it's done, it's very hard to ignore from that point forward. Because now if someone cuts you off in traffic, or someone flips you the bird, or you run into your ex and you're like, you're like, oh, I spent all this time listening to Adele and 80s power ballads while like eating hot noodles and like crying, it's like I was meant to run into the last person who made me feel that way. I was angry at, I don't know, you saw a squirrel eating something in your garden and so you yelled at it, and then someone cuts you off in traffic and flips you off and you're like, where did that come from? This is the thing about karma too. It's not tit for tat in the way people think it is, but the root energy, the energetic signature of that feeling will be reflected to you. The action is not like an eye for an eye, etc., etc. Okay, these things are all allegorical. So I just want to really, really stress that it's like you're not bad. It's not your fault. No one taught you. This is how things work. It's like if they didn't teach math in school, imagine they didn't teach math in school. I would not expect anybody, even with a PhD, to understand basic financial literacy because you were never taught about numbers and symbols and things, okay? That's kind of the way it is. So just try to remove the emotion from how you use the idea of like spiritual language and lifestyle, okay? So astrology and rulers through history. So I just thought this was a fun little page. I'm going to cast the charts of most of these people in future series because people will say this is just stupid. I can't believe you believe this. Da, 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 da. When has it ever been done? Now, this is the thing. I'm going to get more into the occult as time goes on, and I'll do more, especially on Patreon. But you have to understand the world, even as a child, I knew the world was about sound and symbols. I just didn't know how to articulate that. And when I tried, adults would like laugh you out of the room. And now that I'm older, I understand, of course we don't accept it in the mainstream. Of course we don't take it seriously. It's not the occultist way to spoon feed people the answer to something. They're never going to learn anything. This is an energy game. I cannot create anything for you. I can add fuel to the fire. I can be influential, but I cannot manifest it like for you if you yourself are not actively gunning for that thing. You don't really know what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? So in this case, all these things are not best kept hidden, but they simply are because most people just don't get it. So what's the point? What's the point of owning it, right? And in a sense, it is like a best kept secret. You'll see so many people who like will vie for like a top astrologer to be their personal astrologer, and they don't want to share. They don't want to let anybody know. They'll stick them on their payroll and like keep them there. They'll give them anything, right? So historically, this has of course been the case. This is nothing new under the sun. There's different faces, different places, different century, same pile of crap. It's a turd is a turd, okay? Nothing really changes. So here I've given some awesome historical examples. John Dee and Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth I. So her sister, Queen Mary, asks John Dee, master astrologer. He was the original 007, okay? He was a spy. What's going to happen with my sister and my reign? Is she going to be executed? What's going to happen? And he said, not only will she live, she will rule. And so what did Queen Mary do? She threw the both of them in prison. Okay, she locked them both up because she was so terrified of this prophecy coming true. Of course, it did come true. They worked together for a very, very long time. As usually is the case, sooner or later, these people fall from favor and die somewhere impoverished. I think Mortlake, his house in Richmond, London, still holds a library of a lot of his works, but you can read about that. So clearly, here we have astrologers influencing monarchs, and astrology in these days, this is like 500 years ago, this was a respectable science. Okay, so in Vedic astrology, it's still referred as a life science. It's not an art form. I feel like Western astrology is referred to more as like an art. To me, they're like, you can interchange them, I suppose, because as long as it's creation, it's creative energy. It's scientific and artistic, so I don't really mind. It's creative. In any case, nobody could be respectable anything if they didn't know the basics of probably, you know, a horary chart. It was taught in order. You learned like William Lilly's day and age, you know, horary master. You learned horary, mundane, and then lastly, natal astrology. So you had to know what could happen at a given moment, what's happening around the world, and what's going to happen to you specifically. But anybody who was worth their weight in dust mites, not even salt, okay, they knew how to read a chart. Michel Nostradamus and Catherine de Medici. So interestingly enough, I think I looked him up because I'm going through the complete prophecies of Nostradamus. I read about it when I was sick over Christmas and New Year's, and interesting, his little quatrains are in here, as you can see. And if you look him up, I think it still says French astrologer and not physician, but he was a master healer. Okay, so he was unorthodox for his time, and as he got older more and more, he got into obviously like prophetic work and channeling. Of course, he was summoned by the Queen of France. She was like, come here, you know, tell me what's up, tell me what to do, guide me, help me make decisions. Okay, Napoleon Bonaparte, I believe he said, a man uses everything in his power to achieve what he wants, including luck. So he never exclude luck. Okay, I was paraphrasing that, but something to that effect. But he had the very famous Marie Anne Lenormand, and as we know today, if you read, you know, tarot cards or any other kind of form of divination that includes cards, the Lenormand decks are named after her. She was very, very popular in her day and age, and he relied on her heavily. I'm not saying he's a great person, but he achieved what he wanted to achieve, and that's the point, okay? In more recent history, President Ronald Reagan and the famous Joan Quigley, which apparently his wife did not let him do anything without consulting Joan. So apparently they even evaded several assassination attempts or things like that. I mean, this woman would call them and just say, you're taking a flight today. I think at one time she said, just wait 20 minutes. Don't board the flight. Wait just 20 more minutes. And they would, anything she said, like her word was the law, right? Very famous, very dear to my heart, Princess Diana and Penny Thornton, though Princess Diana was known to visit psychics and things like that all over London, but Penny Thornton was also known to be her astrologer. Very, very famous, J.P. Morgan, who said, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do, okay? Evangeline Adams was his astrologer. So another thing that you'll see a lot of trends for, and certainly I've seen this in my short time on the internet, since I've gone public, with what I do, is the onslaught of messages, but not just curious. You know, people are trying to procure the service for financial astrology, which in the future we'll get into it. It's not a problem. But the important thing you have to understand is you actually have to have the karma for such a thing. Not everybody can make money and survive. That's in everybody's chart. How you do it is different for everybody. Not everybody's meant to prosper through investing, okay? Not everybody's meant to be some kind of tycoon or steel magnate or something, all right? So there's a different vessel, there's a different avenue for every person. If you find a very good astrologer who doesn't lie to you and they say, don't do this, do that, just trust me, just do that, okay? There's people who bought Bitcoin when it was good to get Bitcoin for like $2, but it wasn't their karma. And somehow they got scammed. They got their seed words taken from them. It's not for you. You would have made, I jokingly said, like you would have made more money from a lemonade stand if you listened to your astrologer, but it's true. There's something for everyone, okay? This is why these people understand. Successful people understand how to leverage their energy. If you go to someone who tells you how to leverage it, that will make sense. Now, if you don't believe these things, and the law of attraction is always working and reflecting to you, you're just going to attract more people who prove to you that you shouldn't believe these things. You're going to attract crappy astrologers. You're going to attract crappy readers or scam artists or something like that, or people who just aren't very skilled. And you'll go, ha, I knew it. It's like because it wasn't in your vibration to go to someone who did understand, because you weren't ready to hear what they had to say, okay? The very famous occultists, so they will obviously deny it, as they have many, many times. Tony and Sherry Blair, his wife, apparently, okay, allegedly, I'm not trying to get SUED'd, but you know, he has this like red little sachet, this little pouch. He doesn't leave home without it. His wife would collect his hair and toenail clippings, nose hair trimmings, take it to occultists all over the place, drawing salt circles and mumbling incantations over his, you know, shedded parts of his anatomy to help him rise to power and stay in power and all of this. I mean, this literally has been happening since time immemorial. I don't understand why people think it doesn't actually happen. Even before I was as skilled as, I'm not saying I'm the best, but I certainly know more now than I did 10 years ago. But even back then, I just knew right away. I just knew you know, everybody has one. Everybody has one. They would never admit it because it makes them look stupid. That's what they think. But everybody has one of these, you know. I remember in high school when they announced, when the states announced the invasion of a specific country in the Middle East, I remember sitting in class in my 15-year-old brain and I just went, and they announced it over the speakers, you know, and I went, huh, Mars went into Aries. That's why. Like and it just clicked. I was like, they know what they're doing. These people all know. There's no accidents. They make you think. And maybe they don't want us to do it either. I don't know, but they surely know. So Benjamin Franklin had one. Carl Jung, obviously Carl Jung. The archetypes, you know, especially if you're doing like Western astrology and psychology through the signs, Carl Jung, read his work. You're going to learn so much. Albert Einstein gave credit to astrology, and of course he was a dreamer. If you've looked at his chart, especially nakshatras, you'll know the man knew what was up. Okay, he's very, very smart. He knows what's going on. Okay, what you understand the least has what you want the most. Okay, this is very true in life. It's sort of like, let's use the simple example of the person who's attracted to someone only if they're a little bit like edgy or mean to them, and then one day they wake up and they married some like nice, doughy, warm-hearted, warm-spirited person, and they say, I can't believe I married this person. They have everything I want, but they were never my type. It's like, because you didn't understand, like you couldn't see through to the core of them, you know. But then when you release the resistance of what your ideal mate looked like, you actually attracted your ideal mate that has all those qualities. I'm not saying that you have to like settle, but okay, I have to preface everything 1,000 times because people get so upset. It makes me laugh, no offense. But in any case, this is what I'm saying. If you're really eager to understand, you must approach that with an open mind and understanding in turn. And this is the most important thing about spirituality, is no one can do it for you, okay? I have 30 books on the go right now that I'm going to do series for each of them on TikTok and YouTube. I have read easily over 100. It does not make me spiritual. Do you understand? Knowing is different than the actual act or the actual state of being. So you can go to all the seminars, you can take all the classes, the courses, the retreats, this, that, the other. It's not like you get a degree or like a medal for your spirituality. It's how tuned in you are, which is why some people will never be interested in any of these things. And they're incredible manifestors, you know, they're incredibly in touch with what goes on around them. They're very in tune with nature because they trust themselves. They can like feel everything very, very profoundly. And to that, I did make a video as well on YouTube, and it's important to understand that like psychic or spiritual ability, let's call it psychic ability, is just a function of your human body. You know, like lucid dreaming or astral projection, remote viewing, they are not markers for how progressed you are as a spiritual being. You can be very spiritual and have no interest in those things. I'm kind of like that. Like, I don't, what do I want to lucid dream for? I don't give a rip. I'm trying to sleep, you know? But it doesn't mean if you can do it, you're really spiritual. It doesn't mean if you can't do it, that you're not. Because I know people who can channel and they're not spiritual. They're just not, you know, they just like understand how to do it. So that's important. So don't beat yourself up over those things. You're meant to, if you want to learn how to create your reality, you learn how to create your reality. But you don't have to prove to anyone that you know how to do it and how like you've earned your stripes or like you or like you know or something. It's again, that's like egoing. It's annoying. So should you, like, you know, when we're on the lives and I banter with people, why don't I take these questions seriously? Because I understand if someone approaches me in an aggressive tone or manner, and they're very, very defensive, like they're like, I prayed every day and my dog still died. You, Monica? And I'm just like, okay, I'm sorry about your dog, but when you're praying, you must pray as though you already have the thing that you want, and it shall be given unto you. You cannot pray for the illness and the fear and the lack and the loss and then be completely dumbfounded when that thing actually happens, right? So the reason I don't really engage with that is because it's gonna make me angry. It's gonna make me aggressive. I'm gonna lose my temper. Now I'm gonna be defensive, and now I'm gonna fly off the handle. So now what we've done is we've co-created a negative experience, and we've put more negativity in the world, right? So Abraham says here, there's nothing a non-believer will believe until they are wanting to believe, okay? So this is very important. So there's genuinely no point. If someone's like, why are you asking for my moon? Like my friend is dating and she put something on her profile about like, tell me about your moon sign. And if someone's like snarky or rude to you about that, just say like, look, I'm having fun. I'm being playful. I'm not gonna like take it seriously. I'm just making conversation. It's a way for me to showcase my hobbies to you. But if you're gonna be aggressive, I'm gonna withdraw my attention from this conversation. That's a very well worded answer, you know? But if someone's really curious and playful, they'll play along. And if they're not, next, you know? If we set about trying to turn non-believers into believers, then we defeat our own intent. For our intent is to interact with those who are seeking, not attract those who are wanting to be entertained by magic. Now, this is from their book, New Beginning Part 1, which I've done a whole series of on YouTube. Please go watch that. It's their first book ever, and I've done a TikTok series as well. But basically, Esther said to Abraham, when you're on the stage, why can't we just like manifest a giant diamond or a pile of money to like prove to people the law of attraction works and da da da? And they said, well, we're not here to entertain you with magic. It's like a petty little thing. So this is why when people come on the live and they're like, predict this. Where's the next earthquake? Tell me who's going to win this, you know, I don't know, whatever's got talent, or tell me what's going to happen with this political leader. Tell me that it's this celebrity, that celebrity. Are they going to get married? Do the synastry, do this, do that. It's like, no. Just know you're misusing your creative energy to be entertained with silly little things when you can actually be creating. And it's not that it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's minuscule in comparison to what you can have. You can ask something truly profound and receive a truly profound answer. So, and the other thing too is I don't want to do it for you. Do it yourself. I have so many free videos and so much free content. Go look at the synastry charts. Go see who's dating now. See if they're really going to last. You know, the answers are all there. And when you start to train that mental muscle and that auric, you know, vibration becomes stronger and stronger, you're just going to start to see the signs right away. You're going to know the answers right away, right? You're going to know immediately. So I find that very interesting that they said, and this is what I launched Guru Grit, you know, on a particular moon, which is not very popular, but I did it to attract genuine seekers. I wanted people who really wanted to know. I didn't do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can have a massive platform, it doesn't really matter. But me being me, I wanted people that I could like tango with and vibe with and have a good time. So that's what I wanted, right? So basically when you ask the question, make sure you're asking someone, you know, the teach a man to fish. Okay, make sure you're asking someone to teach you how to fish, to do it yourself rather than feed you for a day. So when you ask little things like, if the law of attraction is real, why doesn't everyone have money who talks about it? Not everybody wants money. They want what money would give them, like convenience or freedom, you know, a sense of stability. But you can get that without money. And they don't believe it because they've never tried it. But I can't do it for you, right? Especially not from that place of asking. So basically here, I also mentioned Edgar Casey. He says, Abraham says, whenever you're justifying, you're miscreating, you're misusing your creative energy. And Sex and the Spiritual Path, we talk about this extensively. So creative energy is not just sex. It's emotion and it's thought, it's intention, you know? So if someone crosses the street and you have to slam on your brakes and you say, I really hope your day is ruined. And you kind of like, you put, not a hex, that's a harsh word, but you kind of like put some juju on that person. It's not very, very nice. And it can actually happen, but then you know what? It also happens for you. That's a misuse of creative energy. You must be pure in thought. So if someone is basically asking you to prove Reiki, yoga, the effects of Kundalini yoga or Kriya yoga, the effects of meditation, they're in effect misusing their creative energy because they're asking from a place of doubt. But I'm only talking about people who are non-believers, who are like very like militantly aggressive and rude, not just like curious people or something like that. And if you were to answer them, you're wasting your breath because they're just forming arguments as you're answering. And now you're both feeding each other's intensity and you're going to end up in this entangling, okay? It's going to be like this weird energetic enmeshment that really shouldn't exist. And every thought that's ever been thought exists. So just try your best not to engage. Just say, you know what, it's what I believe, it's how I live. You have your thing, I have mine. My coffee's getting cold, I've got to go drink it. You know, and you just peace out. You take your attention elsewhere. I talk extensively as well in the Abraham series. They said the best thing that you can do for yourself is learn how to like shut off your solar plexus when someone says something you don't want to hear and just kind of exit the conversation, regardless of their feelings about it. You've got to defend yourself. So justify nothing. Don't justify anything. Say you want something because you want it, and that is reason enough. So if you were to say, in Neville Goddard, there was Florence Scovel Shinn book, one of her books, there was a widow with 4 children, and she wanted to marry well, and everyone said to her, you're in your 30s, you've got 4 kids to feed, you barely make enough money as it is. What man's going to want you? Like, you're not living in the real world. And she literally just tuned them out. She didn't justify why she wanted to feel stable and give her children a good future and marry a good man who was gentle and kind and loving. She just said, nope, I want what I want. And she just like tuned them out. She took the little bit of money that she had left, which at the time was like an extortionate amount, and she went to a fine garment store and bought like a gold suit and went to lunch with a friend. A friend invited her to lunch. So everything lined up. It was synchronistic. And she was looking her best. She met a gentleman there who was also widowed with 3 children. He was extremely wealthy. He gave her an offer of marriage. They married. She sent all her children to good schools, and they added an 8th child to their now blended family. So everything worked out for this woman. So the important thing is not to justify, okay? So don't be justifying. Like, if you're the first person in your family to go to school and you want to get a good job and support your younger siblings and be proud of yourself, accomplish something. Everyone's like, well, no one in your family's done it before. You shouldn't have your head in the clouds. Why would you engage in that? Just say, look, I work hard and I'm happy to take a big risk. I'm a hard worker anyway, or I want to be proud of myself, or I want to make my parents proud, but why? Just, why. Just leave it. Just say thanks, had a good time at coffee, ciao, ciao. So the thing is, again, you can't create for other people, but they can influence, and you can influence. So usually it happens in this manner when they make little remarks, or sometimes just with their energy. They'll just be like, good for you. Or like a micro expression, but you catch it because you're a mammal. Okay, we're a social mammal, so we notice everything, and then it just kind of like bursts your bubble or dampens your spirit. So don't be justifying yourself to people. If you've been single for a long time and you're miserable and you go out to lunch and your friends are like, how's it going? Just say never better. Why? Who'd you meet? No, I'm feeling good. Life is good. Oh, but you haven't met anyone. Not why are we even talking about that? I'm just here to eat this Cobb salad, and yeah, it's on the way. Like, I'm not worried about it, and it's my life. I don't feel pressure. Why are you pressuring? Just exit that calmly and gently, okay? It'll do your world of good. So never spend your time trying to convince someone of why you want what you want, why you believe what you believe. If they're not interested, okay? They're not interested. It's like a form of energetic, it's a pollutant, but it's also like very subversive bullying. Like, you believe something and I think you're stupid. Prove to me you're smart. If somebody phrased it that way to you, you would never, ever engage in that conversation. But because they say, prove to me one time astrology work, prove to me one time tarot was real or crystals or something, you're like, all right, time to get down to work. No, don't do that. That's your belief, because nobody makes people justify, like I said, institutionalized beliefs, because that's a form of like harassment or something like that. So don't do it to you, okay? You have to have good boundaries and advocate for yourself and assert spiritual boundaries. Okay, spiritual boundaries are very important. They're very, very important. And the more you act from that place of honoring yourself and your sovereignty, you will attract less and less people who judge you or like throw shade your way. But again, it's important for you, first and foremost, not to be defensive. You can't be like, I don't want to talk about it, I'm shutting it down. Like, you've got to kind of just say, why does it bother you? Why does it make you feel insecure that I like something or that I enjoy this? Everyone has something they like. Like, I think it's weird that grown men wore matching shirts with the names of other men on them and go to a stadium and put their arms around each other and jump up and down when they're really, really drunk and try to get on TV. It's like, who cares what I think? If you're having fun, go do it. You're not hurting anyone. Well, if we're having fun doing this, it's not hurting anyone, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so you get it. Now, thank you so much for listening. Here's a friend that I met from my travels. You know what? You get a hort. What a cutie. Keep your ears open and your spiritual ears open. Keep your intuition open. Pay attention to little things. Like I said, nothing is spoon-fed in the occult. So just pay attention to the little things, your emotions, your feelings, synchronicities. Do you see a bird fly by, like a cardinal or something? Do you see a little squirrel stop and look at you? Everything really everything is always being attracted by you. So it's not so much that it has meaning, but it has meaning for you. So pay attention. Thank you for listening. And remember, you never have to justify yourself. So be alert and in good spiritual fitness, like our little pupper friend here. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope this has been of value to you. The upcoming videos I'm going to do on YouTube are going to be the charts of occultists. So I'm going to do things like Edgar Cayce, Dolores Cannon, and other astrologers. Maybe even like Napoleon Hill was a deeply spiritual man. So, he wrote like the famous Think and Grow Rich, although in my opinion, he has really good books, better books called How to Sell Your Way Through Life and Conversations with the Devil. It's a very, very good book. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you so much. Happy New Year, and until next time. Bye-bye for now.